Hey, let's make a start. Welcome everybody. My name is David Marquardt. I'm the chair of BirdLife Southern New South Wales branch, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our annual general meeting and to our webinar. I'm talking to you today from Gadigal land, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we are all zooming in from today. And Gadigal land for me is in the central parts of Sydney. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of all the lands we're on, their elders past and present, and thank them for their custodianship and stewardship of the lands we live in. The purpose of today's meeting is to present our 2025 annual report and to deliver the formal reports, give you a brief overview of our major activities in 2025, and to elect the next branch committee. But before we move on to the more formal activities, we do have three expert presentations that we hope you will enjoy. And just wanted to reinforce what Barry said earlier, that we are recording today's proceedings, so that if you're uncomfortable with that, you can. Your only option really is not to stay online. First of all, it is now my pleasure to introduce Andrew Caneris, and I hope, Andrew, that I've pronounced your last name close to being correct. Who is president of the Glossy Black Conservancy, speaking on the Glossy Black count. Adrian is an experienced ecologist with 4 decades worth of experience working in diverse landscapes to safeguard biodiversity. He's been involved in research, management, consulting, teaching, and community-based studies of terrestrial ecology, particularly vertebrate fauna throughout southeast Queensland for over 30 years. He's a recognised leader in wildlife management, and through his career he's been a pioneer on and responsible for numerous projects which have advanced the knowledge of application of wildlife management. He has been the state president for the Wildlife Preservation Society of Queensland and is a founding member and director of the Wildlife Land Trust in Queensland. His experience and expertise are regularly sought for matters before the Queensland Planning and Environment Court and as independent advice for local governments. He is a member of Birds Queensland, and has been involved with the Glossy Black Conservancy since he conceived the idea of having all stakeholders working collaboratively to try and protect the species. He's passionate about supporting grassroots community groups and policy reform to enjoy that species survival. So Adrian, it has my pleasure to introduce you, and if you wanted to share your screen with everybody, we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, David. And thank you everybody for attending and giving up your Saturday afternoons to listen to me waffle on about Glossy Blacks and the Glossy Black Conservancy. One of the key things that today's about is our upcoming Glossy Black count, our annual counts that we run, but a few other bits of information as I'm going along. Few wordy screens. I'm not reading from the screen. That's there for people who like to read while I'm talking. But a very quick history about us and where we come from. We've been around 20 years, and we started as a bit of a loose group, basically myself trying to convince 3 or 4 councils in southeast Queensland to work together on a bird that had a home range that covered all of their different territories, and that for one of them to be doing something different to another didn't quite work, and they needed to work on this bird in a joint manner. And it's grown from there. We started bringing in different individuals and researchers, and since then we now run essential habitat mapping for the state of Queensland, which is shown on our regional vegetation management system, and that influences development applications. We run all sorts of workshops. We produced the Glossy Black Conservancy guidelines, and that's given to local councils so they have information on what are key habitat requirements for this species and where it's from. We have grown and we are very busy, I have to admit, and even like any group, we get overextended at times. But for our 24, 25 years, so over the last year, that's just an idea of the type of involvements that we've had. We've got 8 councils that are with us and contribute to the Conservancy. We've got 5 community groups who are involved in it. We've got 6 different businesses that contribute to what we do. We've held 18 meetings and lots of identification workshops. Management committee meets regularly like any other group. the stuff that we really do and the stuff that we're proud of is how many citizens we get involved in various ways. We work with people however they can work, and some people just do things for us remotely from desktop. Others are obviously out in the field climbing mountains and monitoring nesting trees and those sorts of activities, looking for food trees, and helping with workshops and all of those sorts of elements. And yeah, we're very busy. Anyone who's got any interest in glossy black cockatoos, we've got something to help and get you involved with. Couple of key things I'd like to just touch on. We're working with the federal government at the moment, and we're chairing and auspicing the recovery plan for the black cockatoo. And it's at the stage now where DQ have actually done their review. We've received that, and we're now doing our final edits, and it won't be too long, and hopefully that will be out for community consultation. And with the aim of it being implemented by April somewhere next year. These things take a little while to get through the department and the minister to sign off on. Key thing I'd like everybody to note is our national forum. We held one 2 years ago, and it's going to happen every second year. But we have an online national forum which runs for 2 days, and we have all sorts of experts. And it's not just about glossy black cockatoos. It's also about research and research techniques and getting into like the drone surveys and remote sensing surveys and audio surveys, and just generally getting people who are interested in bird conservation together and getting introductions. We had nearly 600 people involved in it last year, and 25 different speakers, all recorded. It's all online, and anything I talk to today or lean to, our website, the Glossy Black Conservancy's website, it's got everything on there, and lots of training materials and things as well. So main thing for today, and conscious of everyone's time, is our Great Glossy Count. So we run an annual count, sometimes twice a year, but we generally once a year, and we target breeding season at one point, and we target post-breeding season on the next year. But we're really looking for people to get involved. Anyone can scan that code, and it will take you to our website where you can register and get involved in it. Anyone can participate. It's run through the bird data portal, so volunteers can get on. You select a 1 kilometre square grid. There's grids in there that have been prioritised, so they're priority areas we'd like people to go to, but you can select any one that's convenient. And we just ask people to give up an hour to search that grid for the birds, evidence of feeding, and habitat values that are in those areas. Quite simple, all done in the app and all registered through bird data. So very good to have that happening. So yeah, please scan that. Other than Kath, who I think it was, who's driving, probably best you don't try and scan that at the moment. Workshops are available. Anyone who's not sure about how to do this or how to identify black cockatoos, male and females, juveniles, any of those sorts of elements, we run workshops. And there's, again, that little code there. You can scan that, or our website will take you to where there are workshops. There's an online workshop I know on May the 5th, where there'll be introductions on bird identification, but also how to use the app itself, how to register, and how to get involved with the count on the day. So it's a very important activity for us, because it gets us information on an annual basis of these birds, how many have been received in repeat locations, to try and just get a handle on population and population monitoring. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. And welcome any questions or anyone who's got any seeking any further clarifications about the Glossy Black Conservancy.
Thank you, Adrian. I certainly have got some questions. Can I request, please, if people I will try and keep an eye on the screen for your raised hands, but if you are online and you can use the raise hand facility, which is down at the bottom of your screen, that will help me manage it. I see a question from Chris Drummond first. Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, hi. I just tried to register for the link and it gave me a critical error.
Oh,
So I tried twice and it gave me the same critical error twice.
Okay, can I suggest on that one, Adrian, maybe we take that offline and we'll fix that and we'll recirculate.
we'll take that offline. I also know that the
Yep.
PDF's got the links in there as well. Or if you
Okay.
just go to Glossy Black Conservancy, if you just Google that, you'll see
Yeah, I'll
register.
find it. Just
That's all there for you.
I'll find it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Bales, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thanks, David. Adrian, do you have any data that shows trends before and after the Black Summer bushfires, 2019, 2020? Do you have figures and analyses that can show what happened to the glossies?
We have information before the fires, but we, like most Australian species, other than maybe koala, not enough information to be certain about the entire populations. They're all estimates and guesstimates on numbers, but we certainly have information on the areas that were burnt, where there were food trees, and how long it's taken for those food trees to come back. So a good measure of the habitat loss that was involved. And a lot of these counts that we're doing, a lot of that is to try and get a handle on the populations pre and post fire and to try and see if there is recovery post fire events.
Mm-hmm. Did you do any particular projects of surveying after the fires to see if there were changes?
The Conservancy, some of our research and science committee were involved. There was a few federal government grants for some research work into the fires and the impact of fires. Some of those were more on the habitat itself and the loss of habitat. Some were focused on breeding habitats and whether or not the fires had removed the breeding trees or potential for breeding trees in those areas. Some of those studies are still ongoing because they're targeting the comeback of the casuarinas in those landscapes and waiting to see if birds and how long it is for the birds to reuse those feed trees or known feed tree areas.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I got a couple of questions while I'm still scanning for any other hands. You mentioned something, Adrian, about doing mapping in Queensland. Was that I'm not sure whether I heard that correctly. Is that extended beyond Queensland, the mapping work that you do, or is that just focused in Queensland?
It started in Queensland, and it was to get the glossy black cockatoo essential habitat maps into the state government's essential habitat mapping layers. But there has since been an expansion of that into New South Wales. And you'll have to forgive me, I can't recall exactly who it is, but the recovery team is also working on habitat mapping across the species range, because the recovery plans have to have a likely to occur and predicted to occur mapping and those sorts of elements in there. So there's a lot of researchers exchanging data at the moment on where they've got feeding records, where they've got known bird records and those sorts of elements.
Okay, thank you. Pete, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks very much, Adrian. So I wanted to ask you a question, which you didn't actually say, but I could see it in your pictures about nest boxes. So I wanted to know, are the birds using nest boxes, and has that had any impact on the local populations?
All right. Nest boxes, there's a nest box survey that we're running at the moment, and we're really chasing anyone who's put out targeted large nest boxes, and sometimes it can be our nest boxes that black cockatoos can use and things like that. But we're really, really trying to find out anyone who's put out a nest box for black cockatoos, and or if they've monitored it and if they've got any records of their use. Why we're so interested in this is obviously that, you know, if nest boxes work, they're a good management tool or a potential useful tool. On Kangaroo Island, they've worked very well and the birds use them regularly. We have basically no records of the birds using them on mainland Australia. And we're trying to get our heads around whether or not it's just that there is still enough hollows in mainland Australia, or they are different subspecies and things, or whether or not it's a preference thing. And yeah, a lot of trials trying to work out whether or not they are using. We've got some of those cockatoos out in areas where we know they nest, and they've inspected them, they've looked at them, but they've gone and used hollows nearby. So yeah, it's trying to get the secret sauce is what we're trying to do in that sense, and or to find out, is it even worth doing?
Are your designs copying the ones in Kangaroo Island? Is it?
There's all sorts of people putting out all different ones, but the ones on Kangaroo Island are popular. There's also the ones from West Australia, which were for barnabys and other cockatoos over there, which have been brought over here. They're those cockatoos that were in that picture, and yeah, they're a big hollow to get into the bush, get up into a tree, and to have management. If they're not going to use it, we're trying to work out, is it worth putting money into this, or yeah, should we be drilling holes in old trees to try and increase hollows that way? Those sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much.
Adrian, another question, which this is all very focused on the glossy blacks. Do you cover any of the other black cockatoos within the program?
The glossy black conservancy's primary focus is glossy blacks, but our researchers and our research and science committee members, most of them are researching other cockatoos, and we work with anyone who's, because yeah, something that's good for one's usually good for another as well. We got focused on the glossy blacks because of they're so difficult to study. And I'm talking to birders here, so I don't want to waste people's time, but the yellow tails and red tails, they're so noisy, they're active, they make noise, whereas glossy blacks are quiet, they're secretive, they sit in trees and they just crunch on cones all day. And they're very hard to find, they're very hard to research. We can't collar them because as soon as you put a collar on one, its mate chews the collar off and that's over. They're a very challenging bird to do research on, and that's where the fascination and focus sort of came into play.
Okay, thank you. Barry.
Yeah, Adrian, very interesting. I know that the workshops have been recommended. I think there's one scheduled for at Mount Colah in the northern part of Sydney very soon. And I'm trying to decide whether I should attend it or not. And I'm just wondering whether you can give us an idea of the content of these workshops, and perhaps some examples of the sort of techniques that those that participate in the Great Glossy Count need to be aware of in order to successfully survey these birds.
All right. The workshops, if they're local, they're worth going to. I wouldn't recommend you travelling any significant distance to get to them, particularly if you're familiar with bird data and using bird data portal, and if you can identify black cockatoos. I also say that because there are online training workshops which will be done basically exact same information conveyed and everything else, and you'll get a recording of it emailed to you so you can watch it several times as well. So you can sort of pick what suits. The workshops they vary a little bit. Some of the workshops are groups that have already been involved before, and they're just doing little refreshers and getting together to work out where they're going to target this year. Whereas other ones are for people who haven't been involved before and want to learn how to identify black cockatoos and how to use the portal and the data and those things. But all of the workshops certainly give you a rundown on that. And again, if you go onto that website, there's links to workshops all over the place. There's links to the online one, and yeah, they're all listed out. So wherever anybody is, I know most of them are in Southeast Queensland, Northern New South Wales, and one of the things the Conservancy's really concentrated on over the next year and two is pushing down into your guys' part of the world a bit more and having a bigger presence down that area, because there's a lot going on. But a lot of our recovery team people are very familiar with your part of the world and the birds down there, so we're getting good information. And the other projects, just very quickly, the Flossy Finders. I don't know if anyone's heard of that project, but if you see a female glossy black cockatoo, we're trying to get people to take photos of their face, as good a photo as you can, because what we're trying to do, we're doing repeat surveys, getting all the females are all very distinct in their colouring. And they have the same colour year to year. We know that now. It's very consistent. And we're also trying to, just track and monitor the birds through facial recognition, but we've also got an AI training thing happening, trying to get AI to recognise different females and be able to pick them out of photos and things as well. Because, it's an inordinate amount of time going through photos and things like that. So we're trying to get AI to do a little bit of it for us as well.
Follow up on that, Adrian. Why females? Why not males as well?
Males generally just have the constant chocolatey brown colour. Their tails change as they age, but a 2-year-old male's tail is almost identical to another 2-year-old's male's tail. Whereas females in breeding season, they have a yellow flush, and some will get spots, some will get just one cheek, some get a yellow bib, but they're always different. It's quite variable. And if you Google female black cockatoo and look at the various photos, you'll start to realise they are very distinct.
Thank you. Yeah, fascinating. Thanks.
Yeah. And, as a bird that only eats casuarina cones, only uses its left hand to do it, and to feed on that cone and sift those tiny seeds for such a big bird is a fascination in itself. And then when you think about that male bird is feeding on those, and in breeding time flying back to the nest, regurgitating to feed the female because she doesn't leave the nest for a few months. And late in the breeding season, that is regurgitated from mum to the baby. So it's secondhand vomit, basically, that's rearing such a baby bird into such a beautiful big black cockatoo. And they're a fascinating species.
Adrian, one of the things I love about my work with BirdLife Southern New South Wales and all of my committee that are on is you come across people like you who are clearly passionate and love what they're doing. It's fabulous to see it. So I'm really appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Jenny.
Hi, Adrian. Look, some time ago, I heard an anecdote about a farmer who had glossies coming onto his property. He had a line of casuarinas, and they would only go to some of the casuarinas. And so he actually did because he was so interested and fascinated why they wouldn't go to all of them. He did some soil sample analyses and found out that they were going to the casuarinas that were on the more nutritious soil, as in, had better nutrients in the soil. So the guess is that, they were able to taste them or somehow sense these differences. Do you look at soil nutritional values? Because that might help you, determine, if that's true, right, what this guy found out, if that's true, then it might help you determine where to plant diminuta, casuarina trees for feed trees, but also where to not bother looking because the soil's just so lacking in nutrients that the glossies are unlikely to be there.
All right. We could still be here at 6 o'clock and I could still talk on this subject, but I won't do that to everybody. Yes, there is certainly relationship with soils to what makes a suitable food tree, and the higher fertility in the soil generally applies. So when you get the low Wallamy country, casuarinas in there generally don't produce food trees, and so there's a bit of that. There's been studies that suggest there's a rhizome that's associated with the roots that has to be there for it to make a decent food tree. There are PhDs that suggest that it's genetics, and it's the genetics of the tree that make it. We actually think it's a combination of quite a few of the above, because you can get a patch of casuarina and all the trees are growing in that same soil and same aspect and all of these sorts of things. And the birds come back every year and hit 2 or 3 of those trees, and they hit the same trees every year. And so it's like, and they're picking these trees from the sky. They're seeing something. We've tried to do a bit of satellite stuff by known food trees and being under them to try and pick spectrography. If the tree's giving off something different to the other trees around it, it's the great secret. If we knew how to make a food tree for sure, we'd be very happy. We as a rule, we try to grow from known food trees. That way, at least if it's genetics, we got that bit right. And yeah, better that one than the one next to it that they haven't touched. We do
Fascinating.
Yeah.
We have a
Generally,
question.
1 to 2% of the landscape of available food source is what they're touching.
Thank you. We have a question from Anne.
Oh, hi. Just for the chap who was asking about the Mount Colah briefing, we saw 3 glossies at West Head a couple of years ago, and then that led to meeting a woman who was running the Mount Colah survey, and we trekked up, and it's quite a way out of Sydney to get up there, so understand. It was really good. It was very, very good, and it was really well put together, so definitely worth attending.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a couple minutes left. I've got one quick question, Adrian, before we close down. Can you just give us the sort of the highlights, the exec summary version of the relationship with BirdLife Australia and how that joint partnership has worked and where it's going?
All right. So we started focused on the species as such, and we were running these glossy counts, and we were looking at ways to expand into New South Wales and to get a broader coverage. And out of the black fires, there was funding that went in that gave a glossy black coordinator to BirdLife, and that helped with that setting up. And that was how the app that everyone's going to use for this glossy count was established, and all the data sits with BirdLife, and it's good because it's a central repository rather than us having just our bird data off over here and some going in somewhere else, and some it's best we've sort of worked it so it's got a single repository, and it's a repository that most people know how to access to view and see those records. And so we've got agreements between us to exchange that data, and we've got back-end access to the system just for black cockatoos. Okay, and so great. We can extract the data back and we can put data in. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Adrian, thank you very much for your presentation. There were some fascinating things in the midst of all that. And I'm hoping that we've triggered some enthusiasm from some of our listeners, either listening today or via our newsletter to help participate in your counts going forward. So thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.